Is SEO still search engine optimization, or is it becoming attention optimization? Help me understand what's really changing in the way that search is happening today.
The number one citations or like kind of link back that a lot of these LLMs are looking at is YouTube, right? It's YouTube backlinks are actually way more powerful than other websites.
Social and everything else has really become search engines as well. And think about how much people do on TikTok or any of the meta platforms, whatever it might be.
All of the stuff you were doing for SEO still does matter. Like that's the baseline, right? You got to have good structured data. You got to have, the good backlinks. You got to have the right content. You got to have FAQs. And there's a few more things we can get into in a little bit more detail there.
We have to make sure that we're optimizing for where the eyeballs are going. And that is the new job of an SEO strategist or SME to try to do.
Welcome to SEO On-Air. I'm your host, Koa Kauwe. Today, for this episode, we're going to explore whether SEO is still mainly about search engines, or if it has become something bigger, earning trust, attention, and authority wherever people are making decisions. We've seen this change coming for, I think, the last year or two as AI has really taken hold of the industry. But we want to dive into that subject a little deeper with two guests who have quite the background, and I'm excited to have on with us. Rather than take the chance of not representing them as well as they need to be, I'm not going to do it for you. I'm going to let you hear from them themselves. So starting with Jon, please give us a little background on yourself so we can understand who you are.
Yeah, thanks so much. Excited to be here, Koa, and so nice to get to chat with Marc and get to know him a little bit better today as well. But I'm the CEO, Jon Cheney, the CEO of AIPI, or the General AI Proficiency Institute. And, we work with companies to help them figure out AI. Right. A lot of companies come to us and they say, man, we know we need to be doing something, but we don't really know what. And so we come in and we help them figure that out through strategy, transformation, and education. And my background is in tech entrepreneurship. I'm a tech SaaS founder, right? I founded my first, call it big company in 2016, ended up raising $13 million for that and built and sold that company, started another company after that, and then started this a couple of years ago. And it's been really fun. I spend all day, every day trying to keep up, even though it's my primary job, trying to keep up with AI is more than a full-time job. And then obviously we help our clients and partners do that. But anyway, we love AI. We'll be talking about it a bunch today.
Yeah. I'm excited to have you on. Thank you for joining us. Marc, you have quite the background as well. I think it was 25 years of running an agency. Give us a little perspective of who you are.
Yeah, so Marc Reifenrath, I was CEO of an agency called Spinutech for 25 years, and a little over a year ago, I transitioned into chairman of the board and replaced myself, which has been quite the journey. But we started as just a web dev shop in 2000 when I was a junior in college, and then slowly evolved into a full-service digital agency. We also had a couple other startups along the way. We had a SaaS company as well, and I exited that in 21. We had one that was for the architectural space that actually went public way back around 2012-ish, I believe. But yeah, the common thread is change constantly. And, what's the new technology? What's the new approach? SEO has been evolving over time constantly, even thinking back to when mobile sites and adaptive and responsive and all that stuff were a thing. So I think all these are really fun transitions, and I always really get excited and nerd out about the opportunities ahead of us. And I think the moment we're in is really amazing because it's not just a new chapter, it's really a whole new book, and things are changing so quickly. But like Jon, I'm nerding out with Claude, and I'm kind of addicted to it and staying up way later than I should using it and finding myself thinking about it way too much. But I think there's a lot of us in that, and that's what makes this part of the story of what we do really fun.
It's the one common thread between all people that get excited about AI is staying up late. Like you get started on something and people don't want to stop vibe coding. You just like keep going. You're like, oh my God, this is so cool. I could just do one more thing and one more thing and one more thing. And then it's like 2 a.m. You're like, okay, I need to have a productive day tomorrow. So I'm going to go to sleep.
The energy that you get from running like 3 projects so fast at the same time just keeps your adrenaline going way too late.
Yeah.
Nerding out's a good way for it because I feel like I haven't done that type of nerding out since I was like playing games.
No, it feels like a video game to me. I get the same kind of, what is dopamine hits or high or whatever you want to call it. Like I really feel the same way that I used to feel when I was younger and I was playing, I don't know, some World of Warcraft or something, right? Where I'd be like, oh, this is so fun. I got the next level. I did this. And, but now it's building this business, it's coding, it's figuring these things out, or unlocking the SEO and GEO secrets of the universe, which we're going to talk about some today. But man, it's so fun. It is fun.
I love the dopamine expression there, because I really, even when someone else shows me something exciting about AI, it hits the same way where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is possible. Let's go out and do this. It's amazing. For that reason, you two as guests, I think, is really exciting. So my first question for the two of you to open it up is really around the marketing side of things. But is SEO still search engine optimization, or is it becoming attention optimization? Help me understand what's really changing in the way that search is happening today.
Mark, I'd love to hear your answer on this first. Being the marketing agency guru that you are, you've been around this a lot longer than I have, and then I have my opinions, but I'll follow up after you.
Well, I think there's this, for the last 10 years, there's been this thread of, oh, this next update, this whatever, SEO is dead, SEO is done. And I don't think that I think the term is continuing to evolve, and the job title is not keeping up with what it really is today. It's still fundamentally really good content that is better, than what else is out there to show up, but it's showing up in so many different areas. So I actually like to refer to it as search everywhere optimization, because the website is still at the center of the ecosystem, and it's important that that's where you put your content as one point of entry for it to then to be found on whatever AI of choice you want. But social and everything else has really become search engines as well. And think about how much people do on TikTok or any of the meta platforms, whatever it might be. At the end of the day, like I always said way back in the early 2000s when we started, we're chasing eyeballs, and the eyeballs are moving once again. And so we have to make sure that we're optimizing for where the eyeballs are going. And that is the new job of an SEO strategist or SME to try to do. There's a lot of nuances to all that, obviously, but I do think it's changed. I don't think it's dead. It's just changing quite dramatically. And even think about you as a consumer, how you look for and find things. I think it's funny how we got to a point where we could build a really good attribution model and see clearly where the user went and where they converted. That's become hard again all of a sudden because it's disrupted and disjointed. And that's oftentimes people are just not putting in the effort to get that completely connected again. But we do have some old school, like when we had billboards and TV and radio, you can always know there was halo effects. That is happening again because people go to TikTok, jump to Amazon. There's some ways to connect that now, but it's relatively a dark hole for some. So I think the bigger part of this is attribution and how you can prove what you're doing is working through all these different efforts. And I'll stop there and let Jon jump in too.
No, I think you're spot on. You got to be everywhere. You got to be where the eyeballs are, right? It's the same reason why you do get on the billboard and you have those different, kind of really hard to track elements, right? But they work. At my company, we work with over the last 2 years, we worked with hundreds of companies, to help them figure out AI. And I have spent $0 on marketing, not one single dollar. And the things that I do, I post on LinkedIn 2 or 3 times a day. I post on X 2 or 3 times a day, Facebook 2 or 3 times a day, and Instagram 2 or 3 times a day. Sometimes I post the same thing, those same things across the 4 platforms. And I will modify them a little bit, right? Like I might focus a little bit more on a personal life thing on Instagram and maybe a little bit more on a professional thing on LinkedIn. And it's not exactly just copies everywhere. But the point is, I'm saying those things everywhere. I have great followings because I post consistently and the platforms reward me for that. But that also kicks back. It feeds into the SEO, right? When I put a link, right, or somebody puts a link to my business or something like that, it links it to all of those things. Another thing, I read a report from Ahrefs the other day that was talking about how the number one citation, sort of like kind of link back that a lot of these LLMs are looking at is YouTube. Right? It's YouTube backlinks are actually way more powerful than other website. Even a website with a great domain authority matters a lot. But the YouTube reference, right? The podcast, notes, right? And so, Koa, when you put this on YouTube, right? Just putting Mark's website and my website in the description, that's a huge positive signal to LLMs to get that back. But back to Mark's point. All of the stuff you were doing for SEO still does matter. Like that's the baseline, right? You got to have good structured data. You got to have, the good backlinks. You got to have the right content. You got to have FAQs. And there's a few more things we can get into in a little bit more detail there. But that's the table stakes, right? The companies that are really starting to stand out are the ones that say, hey, I'm going to push this a little further into the social, where the eyeballs are, right? Into the YouTube, into the video content and places where people are hanging out.
And I think, a couple of things on that point is it's maybe frustrating because you could produce a really amazing piece of content, but people aren't going to get to it the same way they did before. And so that you may not be seeing the volume of traffic that you would have 3-4 years ago, but that doesn't mean it's not making an impact. So tracking how it's performing through other channels where it's getting credited is really important. And I think you bring up a really good point. It's awesome you're posting as much as you are because that's what it takes. I don't think people understand the volume and velocity of content needed to remain relevant because our attention spans have shrunk. We used to say 7 seconds. Well, it's not even anywhere close to that. And so, what you're doing is a form of SEO, or it's in a form of optimization in content. And I think a lot of brands say, yes, we're posting 3 times a week or once a day. We're doing what we're supposed to, but it's volume and velocity is, to your point, what those platforms like and what they're going to promote. That's not necessarily a paid budget, but just having the discipline to repurpose content. You can totally redo the same thing over and over again, just kind of reformat for the different platforms. But you do have to have that discipline to do that. And AI can absolutely help you take one podcast like this, and you and I could each have couple hundred posts if we wanted to for all the different platforms. So it's not actually as hard as you might think, but that is creating presence. And to your point of linking through YouTube and stuff, really powerful. The other thing I'll say is, like when we go through these major shifts, is there's going to be some brand sitting out there that was only really focused on YouTube for 10 years. And they're going to be having their moment now because of how that focus is getting driven. And so they're going to all of a sudden rise out of nowhere. And it's like a new competitor for somebody that really didn't know about them or know how to defend against it from an optimization perspective a few years ago.
Yeah, I think a critical element here is some of this long form content like we're having right now, but then reusing it, right? Using a tool like one tool that I've used before is called Opus Clips, right? And Opus Clips, you just literally upload a video that might be 30 or 40 minutes long. And you know what you can do, guys? Anyone that's listening here, you don't just have to cut up a podcast. You can literally turn on your camera for a team meeting and just discuss something, right? And then have Opus Clips go in and say, hey, this is relevant. It actually analyzes the content, finds the moments that are going to probably hit the best, and then automatically formats it for YouTube Shorts, Snapchat if you are on there, or Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn, whatever. It formats it all the right things and then gives you all this stuff ready to download, labeled, subtitles, everything. Like there's a lot that AI can do now that makes this content generation, this content game of, man, how am I going to post 3 times a day? I guess so much work, right? There are great tools out there that can help you manage that flow.
I want to dive into that a little bit deeper because volume and velocity are great, but if there's no quality there, and I think that goes back to what Marc was talking about with content quality being a major part of SEO for, realistically forever since it's really been founded. What is the strategy? Because Jon, what you've been doing is we're working. So what is the strategy around that content creation? And Marc, the same for you. When you're talking about volume velocity, but also maintaining quality, what's your strategy for producing content that people actually want to hear? What are the hooks? What are you working with?
I personally don't love using AI to create content. I'm a huge, I own an AI company. I know how to use every AI platform better than most people, but I still keep the content generation to me, right? And to my team. And I want to hear.
Important thing that we need to share with everybody that you just said. So content is not AI created for you.
Oh, no. And the platforms themselves can see that it's AI generated, but even worse, your followers can see it. You can read through it so fast. You're like, that's the AI format, right? If it's not this, it's this. It's just the way that AI speaks, sounds, and feels inhuman, dull, and it's not creative. It's not real, right? You got to get in there and say, look, here's what's not working. Here's what I experienced. That's why you follow someone, is because that's why I'm interested in Marc. He's got 25 years of marketing experience. I don't follow him right now, and I'm going to, because I want to hear what he has to say about marketing in 2026, because he's got that. And I don't have 25 years of experience marketing, at least in that role. I've done other things, and Marc might want to follow me for those things, but I want to follow Marc if I want to just ask AI what they think about marketing, okay, fine. I'm going to get this, there's good information out there. AI knows everything kind of, but I promise you there's this huge difference between your own personal voice, whatever it is that you have to say and share with the world. People care about that, and they will not follow you. They will not be loyal to you if they start realizing, oh, this is just some AI that's set up on an auto post. It's got to be real, genuine content coming from you. And if you're an expert about something, talk about it. And Google and all these AIs will figure out that, hey, this guy actually is an expert, is a voice on this. If you do it consistently and put it in the right places, the Substacks and the Reddit, all these different places.
Yeah, I think the tool allows you to have the volume and velocity, but it still has to be your voice. And so I think if I were going to put a word on what you just described, authenticity, the value of authenticity is only going up. So there's a few things that are changing dramatically. It's authenticity is really, really important. And then I call it the value of the handshake, but basically said differently is authentic relationships. Like actually still the human interaction is very important, even though agents are going to be doing a bunch of stuff. AI can do all this stuff. Like if we meet somebody, and so maybe to bring this back to the question is, how do I translate that in any of my posts or any of the stuff, video that I'm creating, LinkedIn posts, whatever it might be? How do I try to bring that to that moment? Because you're right. When we're scrolling and just going really quick, it's easy to just go over something, but you stop on something and we still love personalities. We still love whether it's hot takes or whatever it is, but we want to learn from somebody that we trust and feel as though we have a relationship with. There's podcasts that I listen to that I'm in my truck driving and I'm laughing because I feel like they're my friends now. I've been listening to them for 5+, 6+ years. And so, that's maybe a little overzealous of a goal from a business, but like, how do you build that relationship with having never met somebody, but talking to them like you're their friend or their consultant, their, part of their board, whatever angle you want to take. But I think authenticity is probably the biggest thing you can sit on there, because no human's ever going to not like that. They may not like what you're saying, but that doesn't mean that they're that's their choice, but it's still very authentic.
We'll take a half step backwards here and say, what is that client feeling when they see the AI generated content? Help me understand exactly why that's so frustrating. I don't know the right word for it. I want you to help me try to tangibly just explain it.
To me, because I know how easy it is, it just feels cheap. I feel like there was no work, and therefore I put little value on it. And the thing is, there's also nothing unique about this point of view. If I know it's AI generated, then I know I could have gotten that information myself just as easily. I can type that into my own LLM and have a whole discussion about it, right? And I'm going to get the same information. But if I know and I look at someone, I'm like, okay, I can see and I can spot it immediately. I can tell if something's AI immediately. And again, I'm an expert at that, and so I spend time around it. But if I'm looking for, and I see Koa, I see you post something, and I can tell it's that, I'm like, hey, I know Koa. I like that guy. What does he think about this thing, right? What does he think about now we've got a trillionaire in the world? What does he think about now, Fable 5 got shut down by the government? I want to hear what you have to think about that. I'm looking for news related to the world and how I'm going to, position my business and my offerings within it. And I want to know what my potential customers, right, which you represent, right? Both Marc and Koa are my potential customers, right? In that you're in the business world and I'm trying to help you figure out AI. I want to know what you're thinking about. What are your concerns? AI doesn't need me. AI can't be my customer, right? And at least not directly. I'm sure I could go down that pathway. But the point is, I care what humans think. That is the moat in the day of AI, is human authenticity and interaction. Like Marc said, that's the moat. You have to present for humans. You have to create for humans. And because we're human, we want to consume from other humans. That's just how it is. It's just how we're wired. And it's weird. It's like there's no soul tied to the AI written stuff, and you kind of feel that.
Jon, I'd love your take on this. So, I have built basically my voice within AI. And I've had it listen to every podcast I've been on. It's read posts that I've written, whatever. And a lot of times what I'll do is if I have a thought, I do a lot of sports related leadership type stuff. It's just, I'm a competitive person, and I think sports is a great way and coaching is a great way to lead teams. And so, I'll be driving or in the shower or on a walk or whatever and have this idea, and I'll just pull up that project that I built, and I'll ask it to interview me and say, hey, I've got an idea about X, and go back and forth with it. And then it'll start to craft it. And sometimes I'll literally say back, like, way too corny. Make it a little more whatever. And it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, that's pretty spot on. I'll take that to I typically tell it where I want to post it. And then I'll polish it, I'll say, from there, or depolish it a little bit sometimes too, and make sure that it feels as though it's me. But I found that to be a way that I can get ideas out of my head and make it much more articulate and relatable, likely based on past posts, and then also giving the feedback of which ones resonated better. Like, hey, this post did really well. It had this many views or likes or comments or whatever. So I'm just curious, like, how do you feel about that engagement or interaction for posting?
I love it. And you're doing three things really, really well, right? That I want to point out to the audience to make sure they do. Number one, you've trained a model on your voice. Amazing. Okay. It's not that hard. You can use ChatGPT to do it. You make your own custom GPT. You can do it in Claude. You can just give it a skill. There's 100 ways to do it. Okay. But you trained it. And by the way, I have posted on LinkedIn every day for many, many, many years. I have thousands and thousands of posts. You can actually go into your LinkedIn, you go into privacy, and then you download your archive, and it will give you every single post and even every comment you've ever made. And you can take that and upload it into an AI that then knows how you talk, right? Knows what you talk about, knows what your opinion is on things, right? And so amazing. So you did that part correctly first. Second, you asked it to interview you. And that is a massive unlock for anyone using AI. How many of you guys listening have, you go into AI and you say, hey, I've got this idea, right? And it says, you're brilliant, right? And here's all the things. This is so cool. This is why it's so important. This is good. Would you like me to put together a plan on this? Sure. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. And then, yeah, this is so good, whatever. And then, hey, would you like me to do this? Would you like me to do that? And by the time you're done with this 10-minute conversation with AI, you realize that all you did was give it the initial idea. And then you said, yeah, sure. That's great. Yeah, do that, and AI has done all the work. It's AI's creation now. You lost control. Right? You need to maintain control. And by flipping it like you did, Mark, and say, hey, I want you to interview me one question at a time about this idea until, I really feel like you understand what I'm trying to say here, and help me articulate this, and then put it in a post that's going to land well on LinkedIn. Amazing. You're in control. It's your thoughts. Even though AI is helping you write, that's good. And then the third, and I think the place where you're going to then really satisfy someone like me who's pretty discerning about AI writing, is you're going to go in and you're going to polish it for a moment. You're going to take a second, read through it, and say, oh, that sounds a little bit off. I would say it maybe a tiny bit different. So you train a model on your voice already. So it's already getting close to you. It's going to get it 90% of the way there. Then you interview it. Now we know it's really your idea. And then third, you make it fully your voice. I think it's a great way to post on any platform about any topic, especially if you're not a great writer. I don't want to scare people away, because some people really do struggle with writing, and that's okay. I personally love writing, and it's like a skill that I have, and I've worked on it. But some people, it's not their strength, and that's totally cool. You're smarter than me at other things. Use AI to fill in those gaps, but do it the way that Mark just outlined. I think it's incredible.
And the other thing is sometimes, I love Claude's feature where it asks you the questions where you can just click the options, So sometimes I'll tell it to do that. I'll say, I want you to ask questions, but give me options to respond with. And I want to be able to just, A, B, C, or D, depending on the conversation. But all these, and some of these conversations I have with it are more just to file away for future use, or it didn't really come out the way that I thought it. And it'll, I'll tell it, please tell me if this is a bad idea. Do you think based on past posts, this will resonate? Does this feel like me? Or am I too far off the reservation for this one? Whatever. Just having an authentic conversation with that I feel it's a really good friend that knows me and is like, dude, no, that's not, you shouldn't talk about that. That's not, you're just not quite getting the point out there. It's not going to hit like you think it might. So it's kind of a truth teller too, but you're right. If you just have a simple conversation, it's going to tell you the best thing ever. But, and you can change those settings to have it beat up on you a little bit more. But I prefer to be cynical and really push back on me, just like I would a team member. And I think this is actually an important thing as you think about using these different tools is it needs to be treated just like it's got to go from intern to junior associate to, so on. And until you interact with it enough to do some of those things, it's not going to get there. But you've got to lead in a different way. And this is where I think the art of SEO, the pool of people that are understanding that is shrinking. And so there's now, yes, many more resources, but do you have people that understand SEO and the tools to how to kind of 10x, whatever the phrase you want to use is, for each individual as well? And kind of maybe my hot take on this whole subject area is, do you need, whether you want to have an in-house person or an agency, do you need an SEO only SME? Or do you need a really good strategist that understands the full funnel, that knows how to work with a tool that is specific for SEO, that's maybe an agent, or fill in the blank for some of the other channels as well? Those are things that I think are getting figured out now, and maybe, but I think the way we hire for this, whether you're hiring an agency or talking to somebody like Jon and saying, I need an agent built to do X for my brand and to do it really, really well, or agency that might have broader knowledge outside of that, but they're different flavors for different people, or somebody on your team, if you need to hire, putting their AI native mentality on top of the role is really, really important.
One last thing I want to say on this before we move away from the social, and maybe there's even more to talk about, but I just want to hit this one point. The CEO of the company must be active on LinkedIn. It is a requirement for every company in the world. I don't care what you do. You need to be active on LinkedIn. You need to be talking about your industry in your voice regularly. You will get so many customers from it. It makes such a difference if you can just get out there and do that. I recommend that the whole leadership team and even everyone on the team be active on LinkedIn, because the more your whole team is talking about your business on LinkedIn, the more those LLMs are going to catch, and the more SEO is going to catch, right? Publish articles on Substack, on LinkedIn articles, on X articles, right? On all these different platforms. Have your people do that. Get your writing out there. Have many different people, because I can post every single day, about tons of stuff about my company, but I'm one person, right? But if you have 100 people on your team or 40 people on your team, just make it a requirement. Hey, everyone, I need you to post at least once a month. Maybe you're not a poster, but you need to post. You need to write a quick article about something you think about, whatever. We want everybody publishing things, and then, linking back to your company in that article, like, hey, I work on this for this company, right? Reach out if you have any questions. That simple line with a link to your website, being out there on X, on LinkedIn, on the subreddits, on Substack, on all these different social platforms, really add up to your SEO and GEO footprint.
I want to put that a little more onto that is, my view when I was in my role as CEO, I was posting a lot, but I didn't necessarily post just about digital marketing. That was actually probably 10% of my posting. The other 90% was about my thoughts on leadership, teamwork, trends. It was not to just try to come across as I only want to talk to you because I want to sell to you. That to me is not an authentic. That's not how I would treat you in real life. I would go, hey, let's get to know each other. Because when something goes wrong, that's when the relationship matters. And so I feel as though you don't be intimidated by what you have to talk about. Talk about what you're passionate about. So a lot of my posts were about coaching type stuff that I saw when I was watching the NCAA Final Four or whatever, and saw something happen on the court, or the NBA championships, or the whatever game. I would be like, oh man, it was really cool how this sequence happened. And you could see that was a result of practice and teamwork and a relationship. That same thing is applicable to your workforce. Now, deeper, why would I do that? Because I want to crack the C-suite. And to crack the C-suite, I need to talk about things that are relatable to them. Leadership, teamwork, culture, all relatable to the C-suite. At some point, you hope they go, I really like what that Marc guy has to say. I wonder what it is he actually does. He kind of talks about digital marketing, dig in a little deeper, research, hopefully have that conversation. So I don't want somebody listening to be like, I just don't have anything to talk about, or I don't want to just feel like I'm selling. Like, that's not who I am. No problem. Lately, I've posted way more about my epiphanies with AI, and like with Claude in the last 60 days, I've had so many moments where I'm like, holy cow, this is insane. What? Like, and so I feel like sharing my experience or my journey with that is probably pretty relatable to people, because everybody's, whether it's SEO, AI, there's so many things changing, and everybody's uncomfortable to maybe share their true feelings about how they think things are going in their business, because everybody feels like they're behind, that somebody's going to pass them by in the middle of the night and they don't even know it. And so I think just me sharing this journey is probably very relatable when I do post.
I completely agree. If you look at my LinkedIn, my little blurb, like what I do, right? It says, yeah, I'm CEO and I do AI, right? But then I say, I'm a creator, adventurer, entrepreneur, musician, leader, speaker, driven by faith and family, right? And so I talk about all of those things. And if you go to my Facebook or my Instagram, you'll see the same thing. I talk about I'm a creator, adventurer, musician, faith, family, AI. I talk about these different things. And then I do post about all of them. You have no idea how many posts I've gotten where I'll post, I'll go kayaking, and I'm a pretty crazy kayaker. I'll go down big waterfalls and stuff like that. And Class 5. I used to be sponsored back in the day, but I'll have people, I'll post like a video of me going down this crazy rapid, right? And I was just like, man, this was so awesome. I have to share it, right? It has nothing to do with business at all, right? It's just, this is what I did on my weekend while I wasn't doing AI. And people will see that and be like, man, they'll find me because of the kayaking video. They'll find me because I posted about BYU's big win, their football, whatever. And then they're like, oh, looks like you do AI as well, right? My company's actually been trying to figure this out. Let's chat, right? But they come to me because we have these common interests, right? We have these common, like Marc was talking about, a common pain point, we're people, right? We're not just our product. We're not just that. And so I'm probably, if I had to measure, I probably post about 30% of the time on AI and 70% of the time on just what am I thinking about and what's going on in the world. And I'm just in the conversation out there. I also love when I'm teaching people, I love to ask them, when was the last time, I love being in a room with 100 people or 1,000 people and say, hey, raise your hand the last time you posted something personal on LinkedIn, right? And not a lot of hands go up. Some do, but most hands stay down. And then I ask the opposite. When was the last time you posted something about what you do for work on Facebook, right? And very few hands go up, right? Somehow in our mind, we have this idea that Facebook's for friends and family and LinkedIn's for work. But honestly, that makes for really boring platforms and boring people, right? Like, and then I do this to prove the point. I say, I was just looking around a minute ago because I was looking for a book that I have normally out here by Gary Vee. I love Gary Vee and the way that he tackles marketing, and he's just very cavalier and very open and very whatever. But what I love is I'll say, okay, everybody here, raise your hand if you know who Gary Vee is, right? And a ton of hands will go up. And I'll say, keep your hands raised if you know who his favorite football team is. Right. And, the Jets, right? Who is it? The Jets, they'll all, because, he's very vocal about that. And, what else does he do? Oh, he sells wine. What else does he do? Right. And like people know these collectibles, NFTs, like he's a very complete person. And he's an incredible example of having a voice in today's day and age. He posts across all platforms roughly 60 times per day, which is crazy, seems crazy, but he's got systems to make that happen, some of which we've talked a little bit about. But he always has a camera on. He's, again, an extreme example. You don't have to be Gary Vee. But the point is this approach of being a complete person can even help your SEO, can help you become more of a signal to your buyers, to your people that you can work with, and to these engines to say, hey, this guy gets a lot of engagement and his topics are this, and this, but he really focuses heavily on this topic, right? It's real. Be a real person. I agree.
So I want to take a second here because it made me think about authority and how we view authority today. For SEO, authority forever was simply linking to another website with maybe even relevant content. Today, it's going to a completely different level where the content is being assessed and understood so much better that there's like you almost have to be very critical about where you're posting your content to make sure it's truly relevant. Jon, you've kind of hacked that with like the social media aspect of it and authentic content, but that's spreading because it's valuable to people. You're sharing something that's genuinely valuable. How, thinking about the authority that you've generated on the entity itself, just based on the content and adding depth to it where it's not one path, I want you guys to help me understand how search engines have changed with how they view authority today. Not from the just general backlinking, but in the entire picture of what branding is doing on the market today. How has authority changed? Where do you generate authority today?
I think they are going for authenticity as well. I think that's what Google is trying to do. I think that's what Claude and OpenAI and all these companies are trying to do. They do want to bring relevant content. For example, here's another guy that does social media really well, but he does it, and he does some things in a way that maybe might rub a few people wrong. And that's Alex Hormozy, right? And I like the guy. I think he says good things, but I'm writing a book right now, and my book publisher said that Amazon just changed a big thing on getting on the bestseller list, right? In terms of how you can get onto those bestsellers. Alex Hormozy did a big book launch event, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago or something like that, and he broke every record, right? If you didn't see it, then I don't know what internet you're on, but he sold millions of books. But what he did is he had people buy live in his 3-day book sale, really, which is he was trying to do. He'd have them buy like 200 books. Like one person would buy 200 books, and then you could gift it to all your friends, or you could buy 400 books, or you could buy 100 books, right? He's selling these huge packages of books, and so he sold hundreds of thousands of books, just crazy in one weekend. And so he had the biggest book launch ever. The reason I bring that up is because that's kind of an inauthentic way to get onto a bestseller, is just go buy 10,000 of your own book, right? The real way that should be, what I want as a consumer, is I want to know, what is the book that the most people really value? And they're going to do that if there's real value in the book, right? You got to let the book stand on its own merits. And so the same concept applies to SEO, GEO authority. Is you have to put out really genuinely good content that lots of people react to. A lot of the things we've talked about today so far have been like, how do you have your content stand out? How do you get noticed, whatever? But then the way to really get ahead is your content actually has to be really good, because then people will keep coming back, and it's not just relying on, tips and tricks to get your content seen. They're coming to you to look for you purposefully because you're saying really amazing things.
Mark, I'm so excited to hear you bring the marketing perspective in on that too. I really like that.
So, okay, let's think about in the real world. So I was just at an event. I'm from Iowa. It's small to everybody, right? It's still big to me, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're from Iowa. Do you know this guy?" And there's people from all over the country. Do you know this guy? I'm like, man, I always hear this guy's name. I don't know him, but I need to know him because everybody else knows him. And so the signal that's getting sent to me is that this guy is somebody. I need to know him. So if you're Google, and there's a mention here in the comments, or there's this many views over here, or whatever, from all these different channels, right? It's saying Google needs to know this guy, needs to know this site, this brand. It's kind of the same thing. So to Jon's point, like the authentic and being in the right places, but a little bit of everywhere. This is why search everywhere optimization is really the thing, is you have to have the Reddit presence, but not inauthentically. Like, do you have an SME truly responding and putting meaningful content that is linked back to your brand? Or does your brand have a really good POV on said subject that can get linked to, that then people click to and read and consume, or whatever? But is there enough stuff out there telling Google that you're the expert? It's in the 80s, being a published author was a big deal, right? Now anybody can be a published author and buy their way to the top. You can also make music go viral by just getting everybody to post. There's certain channels that have literally thousands of channels that they can use that and make it go viral overnight. So now the music we're getting pushed onto us isn't even in our control. Like, it's still really the studio kind of pushing it through the new radio station. So all of this stuff means your brand needs to be in the right spots where your consumer is going to research and validate so that it's there. So if we rewind, it still needs to be really good content. Is your content better than most, but is it in the right areas? So it still needs to be on your website, but also on Reddit, and also here. Like, it needs to be where it needs to be for your audiences so that it gets authenticated and then boosts you up in your rankings, which are more than just Google. It's also in chat and Claude and fill in the blank, right?
By the way, little tip and trick. You can't, or you shouldn't, write the same article in 5 different places. right? You actually get dinged on your SEO for that. Right? If you write a really good blog that goes on your site and you copy that word for word and you post a LinkedIn article and a subreddit article and an X article and all these different things, you will actually get dinged for it. You need to modify them, at least some. And you could certainly use AI to do this a little bit. Just be like, hey, change the format a little bit, or here, let me tell you a story that you can add into this one, and AI can help you do that quickly. So it might take a little bit more work than just copy pasting across different things, but you actually get dinged a little bit for that. So just a tiny tip and trick on that one.
And I'll give you some real world examples. So way back to like 2016, 2018, we worked with some brands that were national, but very local in how they served the consumer. Okay. And what we needed to do, and this is still very relevant for the way that consumers want to consume content and consume a brand, is they want that localization at scale. Even if I'm working with this big brand, I want to know that I can talk to somebody locally. So I may research big brand, but then what's the localization of that? And so to your point of don't just use the same article, how can you localize that at scale as well and make it very relevant to the Utah area, or very like to Salt Lake City or to Iowa in my area, so that when I enter that door, whether it's through AI or the website, Google, fill in the blank, it feels as though somebody greeted me that knows who I am and knows what I'm about in this area. So think about everything from architectural changes, if you're selling like in the home services world, to climates and just the things that make it, again, feel authentic. So if I do a broad piece of content and just try to deploy that nationwide, it's not going to work. But if the pictures change and some of the wording changes to talk about stucco siding, like we don't do stucco in Iowa, or the clay tiled roofs, we don't do those in Iowa, that's going to jump out to me and be like, this brand doesn't get me. But now if it's these like ranch style homes with, siding and shingle roofs, I've got nothing going off. But then I'm going to look at the flowers and some of the trees and stuff. Wait a second, we don't have palm trees. We don't have whatever. So like you can do all this at scale, but at localization as well. And I think that that's where a lot of brands miss, is to try to just present themselves as one. To your point, like reusing the article 5 times over. No, use that same piece of really thoughtful, expert, content that a POV that you have, but rework it multiple times for different places. So making sure that piece of content, just like for social, you don't take the same piece of video and put it on TikTok and Meta and wherever. You got to kind of change it up a little bit for that. So it's the same thing there.
Yeah. And I don't know how many of you guys have seen, an ad where, I live in a city called Payson, Utah. Right. And so I'll see ads sometimes that say homeowners in Payson, right? Immediately, hey, I'm a homeowner in Payson. That's cool, right? I wonder what this is about. And it grabs you, it catches your attention just a little bit more if it is personalized to you. And you're right, Mark. If I see palm trees in an ad for Payson, I'm going to be like, this is off, right? I'm in the mountains there. I'm in a desert. there's no palm trees here. But yeah, that personalization, that localization is possible at scale now because of AI, right? In order to set up ads that say, hey, homeowners in Payson, right? You actually have to put together a pretty crazy, ads manager strategy, like dozens or hundreds of ads, right? Which might have been very, very difficult, if not impossible, pre-AI. But now with a lot of this automation stuff, you can build scripts and things and systems, and you can have Claude help you figure it out, or ChatGPT help you figure it out. And you can build 100 different variations in a reasonable amount of time. And not only that, have Claude use your computer for you and set it all up in Ads Manager, or use an MCP or a CLI or something that can actually ingest the data and put all those things in there for you. And so all of this can be done at the SEO scale, at the ads scale, at the ads level. But personalization absolutely matters in this day and age. And I think it's going to get way, way more important. I think personalization it's already been a big wave. I think we're getting a next level wave because of what AI can do. Like let's talk about vibe coding just for a second, because I think it's interesting. Vibe coding allows anybody, and by anybody I mean my 8-year-old on the other side of this wall in the kid's office here. He vibe codes games, and he vibe codes websites, and he vibe codes stuff. And he does it for fun. Like it's fun. But I'm saying my 8-year-old does it to say that anybody can do it. Like all you have to be able to do is speak English or Spanish or Morse code, and it understands all of it, right? The AI will understand exactly what you mean. Because software is now becoming almost as easy to make as taking a video with your phone, right? Well, why did video blow up? Well, it's because everybody in the world got an awesome camera. And so you had Instagram, you had YouTube, you have these photo and video sharing platforms that just blew up because content creation wasn't, or all of a sudden became way, way easier than it used to be in the 80s, when if you wanted your photo to really get seen, you had to be really, really good and be out there on National Geographic, right? And you had to submit it through a process. And now that world is kind of gone a little bit. Now the best content still does float to the top, right? It'll get the 100 million views if it's really, really awesome. But the same thing is happening with software. You're going to be able to create, and I already do, you're going to be able to create software for your personal problems, even a problem you might have that's only present today during this meeting that we're having with my team. I can create a quick piece of software that helps us analyze something that I never come back to. Personalized software, right? And a lot of companies are figuring this out too, that they can create a completely personalized dashboard, a completely personalized report, a completely personalized whatever, because it can be vibe coded in your own personal interface for almost anything, almost instantly. Then tie that in. Let's move it forward 5 years into the future. Now put that on your glasses, your augmented reality glasses that you're going to be wearing around, that are going to have vibe coding capabilities from the cloud, that are then going to be able to display personalized, instantaneous personalized software for you that's situational and understands what's going on. And so this personalization trend is just getting started, and AI is what is going to enable it to go to levels that most people haven't really thought through.
So what has every marketer dreamed of since marketing and funnels were talked about? It's a one-to-one funnel. So now we're there where we can literally have a one-to-one funnel. Sure, start with broad buckets, but at the end of the day, it's no longer they're getting this drip campaign every 30 days. It's based on John's activity and his path. We need to reach out in 17 days. And here's the exact method or medium we need to hit him through. And so this one-to-one personalization funnel is here, and I'm really excited about it because that's what we've always wanted. If now, to back up a little bit too, whatever you're doing with any of this for SEO, just go to the data. The data is there. It's maybe not perfect, but make sure you've got a great dashboard that you're watching, and you can see even if there's a halo effect. Okay, we did this thing, we saw a rise or we saw a fall, but just data is king. And we're in an era of having too much data, but this is where AI can actually really help you to consume that and actually find the nuances that humans will miss and help you think through that. And then to the vibe coding thing, couldn't agree more. Everybody's like, I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know where to start. I don't know. Well, listen, I made a golf app while watching the Final Four on my phone and then have evolved it. Or I'm going with the group to Ireland next week. We've got our week-long games, our betting pool. It'll calculate it all. It's got the itinerary. I just vibe coded it for fun. But most importantly, I did it because I wanted to learn and push myself to take something out of Claude and put it into the wild and have others interact with it and see if it would break. Now, is that applicable to something else directly? No, but now I know a structure and how to do that. And so just try, just play. Claude makes this ridiculously and insanely easy. So it's not that hard. And the more that you do that, now you have something to push your team with. I want you guys all to build a little app just on your own, vibe code something and come back to me next week with it. And it might be, how about a keyword finder or content we need to produce to be relevant and show up, or go out and build a tool to help me identify where we should be playing, like which are the channels we should be playing in for our brand, or how to monitor something. There's so many things you can do that really you either had to pay for a tool before or have an expert. Like, just play with it and get started, and you're going to be, it's really fun and addictive, but you're going to be really impressed with how quickly you can kind of learn and figure this out. And to me, that's what, like you said, anybody can do this. Your 8-year-old, that's super empowering. Our first team member we hired in 2001, he's been a web designer for 26 years now. And he's like, Mark, for years we've had to say, oh, we can't do that, or that's not something we do. And he goes, today as we sit, anything is possible. And that just, for whatever reason, it's not that I didn't know that, but it just hit me in the side of the face. And like, Oh my gosh, Eric, you're so right. And that's so awesome and amazing. Like, we need to be the aggressor going to our clients and saying, anything you want to do, we can do it, and bringing them ideas. Like, you could, whether you're an internal team working with an agency, whatever, you can vibe out screens and examples very quickly. So no longer like, hey, John, I've got this idea, and I explain it, and you're like, Mark, I'm not tracking. I'm not getting what you're saying. I can have that conversation, literally talking with Claude or tool of choice, and have it make wireframes, screens, to then say, hey, John, I spent 20 minutes working on this idea. What do you think? You're like, oh, I get this. This is cool. What if we did this? And then you vibe it back. Like, so that from a marketer's perspective is really exciting. You can probably feel my passion when I start talking about some of this stuff, but it's really exciting because these things would have taken months a few years ago.
I want to talk about vibe coding just a little bit more because Mark, you covered the front end, like, hey, this is this idea, and hey, let's make it do this. I want to talk about kind of under the hood a little bit and how I've been able to get really, really good, search results. I have LLMs, we'll have clients reach out to me and say, hey, we want to work with you guys. We heard you're the best. I was like, great. Where'd you hear that? And they'll say, ChatGPT told me, or Claude told me, or whatever. I'm just like, yes, like, that's awesome. My stuff is working. Well, what did I do? So I vibe coded my entire platform and my website on a platform called Replit, right? Which I believe is a lot easier than Claude Code. It's not as powerful and flexible in terms of a lot of other things, but if you just need to build a web app or a piece of software that's going to work on the web, it is insanely powerful. It is really, really good. And we built our entire company on it. So I really like Replit. I'm a big fan. But what you can do inside of there, number one, they have an SEO tool now where you can just push a button and it'll just say, hey, here's all the things you need to do. And then you say, yeah, great, do that. So we'll do a little check. But there's companies out there that do like crazy GEO structure, and they do all these different things, and all the stuff that's happening, and you can pay them $1,000 a month to tell you what to do. But instead, what I did is I went on to ChatGPT and to Grok, and I asked both of them the same question, both LLMs the same thing. I said, hey, look at this company and this company and this company, that are, that handle GEO. And I want you to tell me, I want you to report back at a technical level, what do they do exactly for their customers? How do they get these GEO, results? And so I have both of them, two separate LLMs, go and do the research. And then I'll take the answers and I'll actually copy paste them into the opposite ones. And I'll say, I want you to review what Grok said or what ChatGPT said and argue with it a little bit and refine it, whatever. But then by the time I'm done, I say, okay, great. Now put that into a plan that I can then hand to my agent, right? And so then I'll take all that information. I've got all these technical things that they're doing, and I hand it to Replit, and I say, Replit, here's the guide for GEO to work. I want you to analyze my site. Before you do anything, analyze my site, analyze everything, and tell me what I'm missing. And then it does it, comes back in 5 minutes and says, okay, I've done it. Looks like you're pretty good here, but you're missing some critical gaps here, here, and here, and here. What would you like me to do? Do it all, and then I just tell it to do that. And so I've done that regularly because things change, right? I do that regularly, probably I would say once every 2 months or so for the last 2 years. And it will find a little tweak. It'll do this. And I'll say, oh yeah, this is a little stale. This needs to be updated. And hey, there's a new thing here that matters a lot more. Like, for example, one thing that matters a lot right now to LLMs is recency. And so if you say AI in business in 2026, if you have that as like one of your headlines, like your primary, headers, LLMs love that, right? When they're looking specifically for, hey, a fractional, what a chief AI officer should do in 2026, right? Which is what we do. We do fractional chief AI officers. That type of an article, that type of a headline does really well, right? And so these SEO and these GEO, software companies that are out there, it's really more the GEO that's selling these, and they're charging so much money for it. But I was able to pay basically zero and have LLMs go figure out what is the technical thing they're doing, and then go out and actually have that happen. So under the hood, all that vibe coding stuff is happening, and it's structuring the data in the right way, and it's putting the right content and coming back and analyzing it in an incredible way.
We're just about out of time, so I want to ask my last question, which in truth, we've probably answered throughout the last 50 minutes of this recording. But 2 years from now, what does a strong marketing team need to look like? Because I do think, John, what you mentioned there is making some of those technical changes is moving quickly, but to have the right setup to make those changes seems to be pretty complicated right now. So what does the marketing company of the next 2 years really change to be strong.
So before I forget, I just wanted to say, record everything and use that to feed into your whatever you're using, and it will give you recommendations for SEO, for whatever. But I think the future, smaller, more senior teams, less production heavy, but they understand the technical side of it too. But they're just inherently AI native and understand how to use the tools. But then if it's SEO specific or marketing specific, they have a very good understanding of how that funnel is working for whatever they're working on. And their superpower is bringing that together with the AI and the technical part, and just really, what today might be a team of 30 could be a team of 5 that are really smart and understand the power and are doing that. I don't know that it makes job loss as much as transitions and stuff. That's a whole other conversation, but it is very different. And I think that there will be people right now that start to do this transition and go, oh man, I know SEO really well or whatever it is, and I'm starting to understand AI really well. And if I can put those two things together and stay on top of it and keep evolving, because the game's going to keep changing. This, like we said before we started recording, like this might not even be relevant in 6 months, the conversation we're having right now. But if you keep evolving and changing, my biggest way I attack life is get better every day. Now more than ever, no matter what you're doing, you got to get a little bit better every day to stay on top of it. And if you do that, whatever it's going to be, which is going to be different than what we're describing, I'm certain, you'll be there. But you got to have the effort and the attitude to get there to be relevant when this all changes and happens.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Marc said in terms of, adaptability is critical. It's your most important skill. The world is probably changing faster than we can even predict, right? AI improves roughly 10x per year right now. 10x every 12 months is about how fast. So that means in 2 years, it's going to be 100 times better. In 3 years, it's going to be 1,000 times better. And our brains can't really deal with that, right? Every 3 years, our iPhones get 4 times better, right? Moore's law, every 18 months gets about twice as good. But AI is, increasing, improving at a rate that's just so far beyond that. It's hard for us to figure it out. And, I'm going to answer the question just a little bit different from Marc. He said, a small team of senior people. I'm actually going to say a small team of junior to mid, I think actually will be the team. You'll have a good senior leader on that team. You'll have one, right? But I think that you can have some young people that are learning and some mid people that have been around for a bit, but then AI will be able to fill in so many gaps that will enable that team to be able to operate like a senior team. I also personally believe that when a company uses AI correctly, they will hire more people because their business will grow. They will need more people to handle those personal relationships, to figure out those things that AI can't figure out. AI definitely sees patterns that humans don't see. But the converse is also true, right? The humans have the ability to take something in a way that doesn't make sense, right? Whereas AI doesn't really. AI is following a pattern that's been established usually. For it to come up with a new pattern, to think outside the box is actually a little bit harder. Now you can ask it to think outside the box and it will kind of do it, but it's really thinking outside the box by following another pattern in a different way. It's actually kind of funny, but humans have the ability to do things that AI just can't. And so I don't think that AI is making humans less important. I think it's making them more important. And the teams that really figure that out, that figure that balance out, and I'm not going to try to sit here and give you the exact answer as to what that means, because I think it's worth it for every single individual to think through, what are humans really better at? What is AI really better at? And the real, I think, end of that discussion is when you figure that out, you will figure out how they can marry and work incredibly powerfully together. And the only thing I am certain of for 2 years from now is that AI will play a bigger role then than it does today. That's the only thing I can really say.
Okay. Well, I had the thought here that you said record everything. I think, Marc, you said that. We talked about the teams posting on LinkedIn all the time, taking activity there. I thought about the journal entry aspect of life, where if you've written it in your journal, you've made some progress in some direction. Your next entry is likely not going to be the same one that you put in last time, right? There's like this, one of my favorite books is The Compound Effect. And just knowing that every single small action that you take is making you a little bit better. And I think for anyone that listens to this that hasn't already taken the AI seriously, the thought of just that small step of like install it today and let's see what that vibe coding aspect, let's get some momentum going that direction, I think is awesome. So Jon and Marc, I appreciate you joining us and encouraging that compound effect. We'll see you all next time on SEO On Air. Bye.